All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books Presents Online, Sisters in Suspense, Ellen Byron, Elaine Viets, and Lori Rader-Day. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore, celebrating 51 years this year. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Ellen Byron, Elaine Viets, and Lori Rader-Day, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. We have adapted to the current situation and are still bringing you the things that you love the most about Left Bank Books, with curbside pickup and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world even. So no matter where you are joining us, you can support Left Bank Books. And we are very happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Ellen, Elaine, Lori, and Left Bank Books by purchasing a copy for you or for all of your friends at left-bank.com. It is not too early to start thinking about the holidays, and these are perfect gifts for the Halloween holiday or the other holidays that are coming up. And purchasing a copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff here through the most unusual of times. Your support is incredibly appreciated. It also helps keep this event series going. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from the audience at the end of the event, so type your questions as a comment and we will get to those at the end. And you can type those questions at any point in the event, and they are there. I will be paying attention, so I will know what to ask. And be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. And now our authors. Agatha Award winner and USA Today bestselling author Ellen Byron is a television writer, playwright, and freelance journalist. Her TV credits include Wings, Still Standing, and Just Shoot Me, and her written work has appeared in Glamour, Redbook, and 17, among others. She lives in the Los Angeles area with her husband, their daughter, and the family's very spoiled rescue dog. A native New Yorker, Ellen still misses her hometown and still drives like a New York caddy. And her book tonight is Murder in the Bayou Boneyard. Elaine Viets returns to her hard-boiled roots. Oh, scrolled too far. Elaine Viets returns to her hard-boiled roots with her Agatha Richmond Death Investigator series. A Star is Born is the latest, following Fire and Ashes and Brainstorm, and the novella Ice Blonde. Elaine has 34 best-selling mysteries in 4 series, including the Dead End Job Mysteries and the Josie Marcus Mystery Shopper series. A St. Louis native, Elaine took the medical legal death investigator training course for forensic professionals at St. Louis University. She has previously won the Agatha, Anthony, and Lefty Awards. Elaine lives in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with her husband, writer, and reviewer, Don Crinklaw. And Lori Rader-Day is the author of Under a Dark Sky, The Day I Died, Little Pretty Things, and The Black Hour. And the book tonight, The Lucky One. She is a 3-time Mary Higgins Clark Award nominee, winning the award in 2016. And Lori lives in Chicago. And now, without further ado, if you could please help me in welcoming Ellen Byron, Elaine Viets, and Lori Rader-Day for Left Bank Books. We will welcome to the screen, and if you could all give them a very hearty round of applause at home. Hello! Hi, everyone. Hi. All right, so we are going to start. We have a very nice audience this evening, so we're going to start with a brief description of each of your books. I thought I would let you describe the books for the audience. So let's start with Ellen.
Okay, well, Murder in the Bayou Boneyard is the 6th book in my Cajun Country Mystery series, and I really wanted to do a Halloween-themed book because it seems so appropriate for Louisiana, which loves to bill itself as the most haunted state in the country. So what happens is that a few things are going on. One is that a Airbnb type of app is stealing business from the local historic B&Bs. So my protagonist Maggie has the idea for them all to band together and do Pelican is the name of the town, a Pelican Spooky Pass package where everyone can do different events at the different different Airbnbs. Meanwhile, she decides to invite, offers a job as a masseuse. They're opening a spa to a distant cousin she's never met from Canada, and who turns out to be not what she seems. And these collide and create a murder in an abandoned cemetery. And so much ensues. There's a lot of facts and fun stuff about Creole death traditions that were inspired by a tour I took of the St. Joseph Plantation. And also there are recipes in the book. Every book has recipes in my series. So it's like a cookbook and a book. If you want to make ghoulish Cajun goulash, it's in here.
And the book comes with recipe cards.
Yes.
So, yeah. And Elaine, would you like to go next?
Sure. My book is called A Star is Dead, and it's the fourth in the Angela Richmond series. And my character, Angela Richmond, is a death investigator, and that is a profession that started right here in St. Louis at St. Louis University. So she works kind of as a paralegal for the medical examiner's office. Now, the book takes place in Choteau County, Missouri. And that's a mythical county based very much on St. Louis County from when I was a reporter. So there are a number of stories here that I really couldn't tell in the newspaper. And I have a lot of fun with that. And as a young reporter, my job was to interview old school movie divas. And Joan Rivers types and many others. And because I was young and they were not, they were truly obnoxious. And so in my book, I make a composite and kill them. And this is the real satisfaction of my work. But the diva is a woman who's in town. Her name is Jessica Gray, and she is selling a kale-based drink, which she says is her youth drink. And she drinks it before a large audience and dies. And it turns out that she's been poisoned by her youth drink, and it takes place in her limo on the way to the airport. So there are 4 people in the limo, and it's a locked limo mystery. Who killed her? Who put something in her kale drink? And so it's Angela's job to try to save her best friend Mario Ortega, because Mario is accused of the murder of Jessica. And I hope you'll enjoy it. And that's pretty much it, except I really recommend Ellen books and Lori's books. I've read them and they're excellent. So treat yourself. You know, it's a pandemic. You'll enjoy their work.
Well, you know, I have to say, Elaine, that I read both. Yeah, these are both fabulous books. And I really, you know, my husband is from St. Louis, and I really loved how I felt the city when I was reading your book. I was like, oh, I recognize that. And he went to St. Louis High School. So which is the precursor to the university. So.
Yes. Okay. Well,
And
thank you.
Lori.
So we're talking about The Lucky One. This is a story about a woman named Alice Fine, who, as a child, was kidnapped. Briefly, she was returned safely to her family the same day. Her dad was a police officer and tracked her down and brought her back. And it's part of the family lore. It's just the story that's sort of in the back of her head a lot. She, 30 years later, she feels like she sort of got lucky, like she was the lucky one. And so she decides that she wants to give back in some way. And so she's doing that by volunteering at a website called the Doe Pages, which is for the missing and the unidentified, which is based on the real website, the Doe Network, where they try to match cold case missing persons and cold case unidentified cases. And so one day she's working on the site and she sees a face that she recognizes. And it's the face of her kidnapper who was never brought to justice. So she undertakes an investigation, amateur investigation, to try to figure out what's going on and why. And maybe she thinks maybe bringing this man to justice finally and to save maybe perhaps other people, but all is not as it seems, as often is on these books. So that's the lucky one.
All right. So my first question for all of you. All of you seem to, well, first off, let me state that mystery is probably my favorite genre. I don't like to say definitely, but
it is.
I do love me.
You can tell it's just between.
Yeah, we're amongst friends. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't tell the literary people.
Yeah. So you all have written in now, Lori. I think you are branching off into a new kind of subgenre of mystery. So I want to talk a little bit about the kind of varying genres and what it's like to write in each one. So since you all have experience kind of writing in a wider variety, I just want to talk a little bit about the subgenres, if you would.
Well, I can start because my subgenre is the cozy mystery for this series. And for I write another series called Here Comes the Body that's set in New York and involves a mobster's daughter trying to help her dad run a catering hall as a straight business. It was inspired by my life. So not that part, but I just, for some reason, gravitated. I love traditional mysteries. And I honestly didn't even know I was writing a cozy when I was writing them because I'd never heard the genre described as such. And I wrote mysteries because that's what I like to read. But I don't like violence, and I don't like gratuitous sex, and I personally don't want to read, where teens and kids are mutilated and torture. I can't. That's not me. So I really like. I think the genre. The thing about a cozy is that apparently it has really no gratuitous sex, bad language, or violence. And the sex part is just because I can't write it. I'm terrible. I mean, I have to really learn how to do that sometime. I buy books about how to do it and can't read them. So so I think that, there's a feeling but it's actually, I found it in both your books too, where justice is served. Our books are going to be, you're going to have a great journey, yet you're not going to go to bed and have nightmares and be haunted by some horrible image, down the road. I think with what we all write, no matter what the genre is, the three of us, is there's some feeling of satisfaction at the end of our books. So
that's cozy. That's
I would agree.
I think of it as a spectrum, don't you? Like there's the softer end, and then it goes all the way to noir. I am somewhere, I'm not really sure where I am in the spectrum sometimes. A couple of my books could be called Amateur Sleuth, which is it's near the cozier end. It's cozy, traditional, Amateur Sleuth, somewhere in there. I'm not a big fan of gratuitous violence and sex, although I do like, some of both. It's just not gratuitous. And it usually messes up the story, right? Like whatever messes up the story is what I like. And then a couple of them are, I don't know if Amateur Sleuth is the right term. Psychological suspense is what I think they get called more than anything. And that's maybe a little bit more, it's not toward the cozy end exactly. It's a little bit more realism, to use a MFA phrase. If there's a body, people are upset about it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my dog. My puppy. I have a pandemic puppy, and she is an actual monster. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, Greg. Where was I? Psychological suspense. So you've got a little bit of, anxiety-producing story elements going on, and that's what I usually like to write. And then the new subgenre that Shane mentioned just briefly, I wrote my first historical novel. It's still psychological suspense, but it's historical psychological suspense. It's got Agatha Christie in it, so people think it might be it's not an Agatha Christie story. She's got her style and I got mine, but she's a character. So
Very cool.
yeah. Elaine, you've done several
Okay.
different subgenres.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah, I started out writing cozies, and I enjoyed them a lot. And then I started getting darker as I got older. And so I took the Death Investigators course at St. Louis University, and I began writing darker mysteries. But like all of you, I like the ends tied up at the end of a book. First of all, I want justice. Either they're in jail or they have justice one way or another. And also, I like people to know what happened to the other characters in the book. So I don't have gratuitous sex because I'm not good at writing it. They kind of go in the bedroom and, they're having a good time. Right. But you're not going to hear the bed springs rock, okay? And gratuitous violence, no. But if you like a good puzzle, I write traditional mysteries, and I'm very fair. You can figure it out.
Okay.
So I know at least Elaine, you've kind of described how you came to writing and writing mysteries, but I wanted to ask the others, and Elaine, if you wanted to expand on your kind of journey into writing. But how did you get to the genre? Like, how did you decide, you know what? I love mysteries. I'm going to write them, and I'm going to be really good at writing them.
Well, for me, I love to read them. I discovered Agatha Christie when I was 14. I was commuting from my home in the suburbs to an acting program in New York, in Manhattan. And I think by the end of that summer, I'd read everything she wrote. So the first time I actually tried writing my first mystery in 1999 because I just finished working on a few shows, and there was a writer I was so angry at, I wanted to kill him. He was such an ass. I just hated him. And so I couldn't kill him. So I was teaching during the TV hiatus. I would teach for the UCLA Writers Extension Program, and then I would get a free class. So I took a mystery writing class, and I was like so proud of myself. I was like, "Oh, I'm the professional writer here." And I wrote this chapter where I killed off this, and it rhymes with stick. And then people read their. I killed off that prick, and. So everyone read their stuff, and I realized that mine was the least good. So I was just like, okay, well, I can't do this. That's okay. I have another career. And then in the TV business, you get if you get older and remain a woman, you sometimes work less. So and it's getting better, but there you have it. So I hit a bit of a dry spell, and a friend started a writers group, and I decided, well, I'm going to try writing a mystery again. And what I wrote ended up being called "You Can Never Be Too Thin or Too Dead," and it was because all of my stuff is humor. I wrote sitcoms, so it's very hard for me to write without humor. Although I seem to be doing a decent job of not being funny in my current book, but. So I started, and it won. It was called Reality Checked at the time, and it won a Malice grant, which is Malice Domestic is one of the conferences, mystery conferences. And I didn't even know these existed. I Googled, I literally did a search, and I'll never forget showing up and seeing all these people. I'd never heard of Sisters in Crime. I'd never heard of MWA, Boucher Con. This was 2013. All of this was new to me. But this is a long-winded answer to say I wrote what I wrote what I read, and what I love reading. I like reading nonfiction, which I'm not going to be writing, and I love reading mysteries. And I'm very excited about I love historical mysteries, so I'm excited about your book, Lori. So, and actually Elaine, I read her books and loved the Josie Prescott series. And then she was one of the first people to blurb my first book that published, Plantation Shutters. So I was like, I'm eternally grateful to her. To be here tonight is really just full circle fulfillment.
Well, you won an Agatha, so it was a good book.
Thank you.
I got started writing mysteries because I loved my mother's Nancy Drew. She had the redback versions, and I read them all, and I thought they were wonderful. And I liked how Nancy powdered her nose before she went out and did sleuthing. That was grooming was very important. And I also found a book of my father's that he hid in the basement called The History of Storyville, Ellen, in New
Oh, you're
Orleans.
kidding.
And that was
that's great.
yeah. It was a history of the red light district, which I was not supposed to read. So I wrapped it in a Bible cover and read it. And I was a very devout child. And but it was that's how I got to sneak in all the books I liked. I wrapped them in Bible covers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
But
devout.
I
eventually,
didn't know there were Bible covers. That's how that's something about my background. Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, okay. So I used to read mysteries when I was young. One of my first favorites was Encyclopedia Brown, and then Lois Duncan. I loved these stories, and then the first time I got a chance to go to the adult section of the library, I was scared of the librarian because I was 11 and I shouldn't be in the adult section as far as I was concerned. So I thought they were going to send me back down. So I turned into the first doorway, and it was the mystery room. So I found Agatha Christie first, and then Mary Higgins Clark, 11. I didn't know what was going on, but I loved Mary Higgins Clark. I remember taking, my library book, my Mary Higgins Clark library book, on the school bus when I was in the 7th grade. And trying to convince all my friends that they really needed to read this. I don't know what this is crazy, but it's great. But then I wrote most of my life, but I wasn't very dedicated or I wrote all the time, off and on, but I just wasn't very good at being focused and really trying. In some ways it came too naturally. And so I'm like, I'll write a story or I won't, whatever. And then eventually I decided I needed to get serious. And so I did an MFA program. So I entered an MFA program here in Chicago at Roosevelt University. And one of the short stories I was writing got long. And someone said, it's a novel. And I'm like, okay. And then right after that, I got a chance to let this group in Indiana invited me to come do a fellowship with them, and it was 9 authors. I showed up, and they had put me in not the fiction group, not the nonfiction group, but the mystery group, which was a big surprise to me because as far as I knew, I was not writing a mystery. But the teacher was Terrence Faraday, Indiana mystery writer, really good. Mm-hmm. And he set me straight. He hates this story because he thinks he sounds mean. But he was not mean. He was very kind. And he's like, do you have a mystery in your story? I mean, do you have a crime in your story in your first 15 pages? And no, you do, because I read it. If you solve it, your book might be a mystery. Maybe not, but just think about it. So a year or 2 later, I went to my very first BoucherCon, as one of you was mentioning. BoucherCon is this huge event, and I didn't know what was happening, but I loved it. And yeah, that was me finding mystery. It was like opening a secret door into a secret world.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to describe it.
All right, before I turn the conversation over to just the 3 of you to have a little chat, I forgot to mention that tonight is co-sponsored by the St. Louis Sisters in Crime chapter.
Oh yay!
Yay! Hi, sisters!
They are here in force, I see, and we have people from all over the country joining here, fantastic. So that's really wonderful. But I was hoping that Lori, as the outgoing Sisters in Crime president, national president, you are the national president.
For about 4 more hours.
Oh, wow. What a well-timed event.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you could tell everyone just a little bit about Sisters in Crime and some of their missions, because I am really excited about some of the things that have been implemented in Sisters in Crime over the last couple of years that I think are really important. So if you could tell everyone a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Sisters in Crime is basically it's a writers organization. We have readers as well. We have librarians, booksellers, anyone who loves crime fiction. 4,000 members strong right now, over that actually. And we have a lot of classes. We have a lot of live webinars that are free to members, and we have lots of programming. When it's in person, we used to have a little bit more programming in person, but now we had a lot virtually already. So we were set up for this new world that we're living in. But the goals of Sisters in Crime is to level the playing field for women writers specifically, women identifying writers as well, and really to make the mystery community more inclusive, to make sure that people get to tell the stories that they want and get a chance to make their writing better and to learn how to promote their work and find a community who is supportive and who will make the community supportive, welcoming to them. So it's a great organization, and not just because I'm the national president for 4 more hours. I've been a member for about 10 or 11 years now. It was one of the first things I did when I was told that I was a mystery writer. I joined Sisters and also MWA, Mystery Writers of America, and got involved. So hello to the Sisters in Crime members who are here, and to anyone who's here and wants to write a mystery and needs a community, would like a community, look us up, because you can be a sister, you can be a sibling. Anyone is welcome, including men. So
can I just throw something in here? Because one thing that I found when I joined that was incredibly valuable is a subgroup of Sisters in Crime called the Guppies, which either stands for the Great Unpublished or the Going to Be Published. And it's just this wonderful group we're all so supportive. Even those, what happens is that some of us get published, and I hope you can't hear the lawn mowing.
We totally can, but it's fine.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I had a feeling it was you. I'm like, who's on the West Coast? There she is.
No one's mowing the lawn at 7:30 at night in St. Louis.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. My dog was barking a few seconds ago. It's all fine.
Is it okay? Is it? We might tell ever not. I feel so. I don't know. I feel like such a. I don't know what the word is. Such a suburban woman right now.
I mean,
and so it's super. Can you? I think Ever may have to stop mowing.
I love this modern living. Like the things you can't predict it. You can't.
I feel terrible. I have no idea. I'm literally, I'm like the murderer of plants. So we have to have someone who can do the stuff I can't do, which is, because I'm literally, you could do a series about me and I'd be the villain who kills plants. But back to this, so sorry. So half of it looks like crap anyway. It's all a bunch of weeds. So if it doesn't get mowed, no one will notice. So back to Guppies, and they offer a lot of great online classes. They have been for years. So I really, really highly recommend the subgroup as well as the mothership.
Yeah. And Shane mentioned, sort of the mission, some of the things that we've instituted in the last few years. Specifically, we have grants for, we have a grant for writers of color to try to invite more people into the mystery community and to find those stories on the shelf. I want to read them. As a reader, I want crime fiction to be more diverse. And we haven't announced it yet, but there's going to be a grant for writers from the LGBTQIA community. So I didn't say that. I didn't announce that. I did not publicly announce that, 2 months early. But that's something that we are working on. And just to invite more diverse voices into the mystery community and try to help them build a long-lasting career.
That's great.
Yeah, and hello to all the Sisters in Crime members.
And I belong to the newest chapter, the Treasure Coast chapter in Florida, and I left and was made treasurer. So but I'm really looking forward to this brand new chapter. It's not quite a year old, and it was started by Joanna Campbell Slan, and there are lots of good writers in it. So going to the meeting really helps me. I get inspired and I go home and write, and even virtually. So, we need to be with our own kind. So please go.
Because everybody else thinks we're weird, right?
Am I right?
Elaine, just FYI, we have actually a newer chapter than that. We have a chapter, the Columbia River chapter in Oregon and Washington. It's actually a virtual chapter because it's a big geographic range, and so they're taking advantage of the virtual world to get a chapter started virtually.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Good.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you to have a conversation for about 10 to 15 minutes. And reminder for the audience, if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and type them up now, and we will get to those at the end of the program. So I'll be enjoying with the rest of everyone while you all have the conversation.
Great. Thanks, Shane. Well, I actually noticed something, and I wanted to bring that up with you, is you talked a little, Elaine, about what inspired the book and these divas. I thought it'd be kind of fun if we all talked a little about the real things that inspired the fictional. Because I know, Laura, you have a story behind this book.
I love telling that story. Yeah, go ahead, Elaine.
No, Elaine. Tell a little more about some of what was like to interview those divas and why were they so mean?
I'm not sure. I think that they had been catered to all of their life. And now here they were traveling the country. They were mostly at this age famous for being famous. And but they still demanded the world bow down to them. And I remember interviewing Gloria Swanson during Sugar Blues. And that was a book she wrote in which she felt that if you gave up sugar, it would practically give you eternal life. And I admit that for 80, she looked terrific. But when you got closer, her skin was like wax. It was just amazing. But she still dressed like a 1920s glamour queen. And she had a much, much younger male companion, for which I greatly admired her. And, for that part, it was fun. And another one I had was Joan Rivers. And Joan has always joked about her facelifts, but she wasn't kidding. I mean, if she'd had one more facelift, they would have had to bikini wax her lip. And she was apparently not in a good mood when I talked to her, because this was during the time of the war on poverty. And so her big joke, which got laughs, was, "I'm all in favor of the war on poverty. I threw a hand grenade at a bum."
Oh
no.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So much for punching up, right?
By the way, I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
I remember that book. I read that book, Sugar Blues, and not only that, I believe the co-writer was William Duffy, who was the guy she was with,
Yes.
who she married. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. You are right.
What was the age difference? Anybody know?
About 40
Decades.
years.
Oh.
Yeah. It wasn't May, December. It was January, December.
January to like.
Yeah.
That's fun.
But, more power to her.
Absolutely.
But yes, it was William Duffy, and it was a long time ago.
That's funny.
But she had been a great beauty in her day, and I think she would have still been attractive if she'd let herself be more natural. But, that's just me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I did. I enjoyed killing these divas. So
It's great.
They had to die.
Lori, your story.
Lori, tell me the story.
Okay, so my books are standalone. So I got finished with one, and then I have to, start all over. I just have to go with a totally new idea. And I was sort of just kind of shopping around for my next idea. one day. So next door, I live in Chicago. The houses are very close together. And on one side, we have a very high fence that belongs to those neighbors. And then on the other side, we have a very low fence that belongs to these neighbors. And this low fence is a chain link fence. It's ugly. The house got redone and the family moved in. Adorable little family. It was mother, husband, and their little girl. And so the first time I met them over this really ugly fence in the backyard, the woman said, "Oh, and this is my daughter, Eden." And I said, "Oh, I don't usually start with telling people what I do because it's weird. But, I write these dark mystery books. And the one I just turned in to my editor, the main character's name is Eden. And until now, I didn't know any Edens, right? I sort of specifically choose names usually that I don't know anyone for reasons. And she's 2, right? She's adorable. And so the mom was like, "Oh, yay!" And I was like, "Oh, I don't think you're going to think so, but okay." And then a few weeks later, we were talking about over the fence again. We were talking about the fence, like, it's your fence. If we were going to get one, it would just trap a lot of grass and you'd still have the ugly fence. So, if you wanted to do this together and decide, make decisions together, let's talk. And she said, "I would love to do that. I hate this fence. It's not because it's ugly though. It's because I'm afraid someone's going to reach over and grab Eden." And I am usually the worst case scenario person in any relationship, but I had never thought of that. And I said, "Oh, it's probably because I don't have kids. I didn't think of this as a low fence, but now I see that's a problem." And she said, "Oh, it's not because of that. It's because I was kidnapped as a child." Ooh. "Stop," I said. "Okay, you just became the protagonist of my next book. Is that okay?" And she was like, "Yay!" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think so. I don't think you're going to think so." So my character was kidnapped as a child, returned safely the same day, just like my neighbor. But of course, there's a lot more story to it. And then I had been sort of looking at the Doe Network, the site with trying to match the cold cases, just kind of getting a feel for the site. And one day when I was looking at the site, I was sort of shifting, looking at it geographically, looking at it by dates, kind of looking, just kind of looking to see how the site was put together. And so I looked at Indiana, which is where I'm from, and I saw a face that I recognized. And it wasn't like I didn't remember that this person had been kidnapped as a child when we lived in the same neighborhood and rode the same school bus. I just was surprised to see her still missing. And even though I knew she was, it was just like this weird, hadn't really thought about that case in a while. So I used that. And of course, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Otherwise, it would be a very short book. But that's the inspiration is my neighbor and the donut.
So Lori, has she read the book? Has your neighbor read the book?
Yes. She liked it, and she took it on vacation with her entire family. And so they were passing it around, like all my books, actually. The family book club, I guess now. But and she actually learned new information about her situation because, having this conversation with me, she would talk to her mom and say, "Oh, my neighbor's writing this book now." And her mom would tell her things that she didn't actually know about what had actually happened to her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating.
Wow. Yeah.
So, well,
I owe her one, right? Handing me a book idea like that over the fence.
That's great. But I love how this stuff just happens sometimes. I mean, for me, I did say a little that but I don't know why I hadn't put the thought of writing a Halloween book together with my series. I don't know why. And I was at the Louisiana Book Festival and I stopped off at impulsively to do this, what they called a Creole Morning, MOURNING tour. And there was like a living history. They had actors playing different roles. And I just was so fascinated. I've always been obsessed with like abandoned places. And so this wasn't, but there was the site of one of the fanciest gardens 150 years ago or so, that now is just completely overgrown and there's nothing left to the house. So and the family's background was really interesting. So I incorporated that. I incorporated a lot of like the little little things I picked up about Creole mourning into it. Like, with these tombs they have, because Louisiana is so, southern Louisiana is below sea level, they have the tombs. And like when people were, they would do a visitation or a wake for 24 to 48 hours, it was because they couldn't be sure someone was actually dead. There was a chance they might be in a coma. So that allowed them more time to confirm it. But even with that, in those big tombs, they would sometimes put a bell in case someone, hey. So, and just little that, I incorporated some of that stuff I learned. And then my agent had said to me at one point, well, what about relatives? I mean, Cajun is a bastardization of the word Acadian. It was these people came in the mid 1700s. The British booted all the French Catholics out of Acadia, and they a lot of them ended up in Louisiana, which at the time was run by the Spanish, but it went back and forth between Spanish and French rule, and they were all, kind of intermingled. And so, I thought, okay, well, yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. Some Canadian relatives, but, I did a form of improv for years called theater sports, and I spent tons of time. It started in Canada. I spent a lot of time there, and Canadians do live up to their reputation of being the nicest people on earth. So I thought, well, I'm going to play with that. I'm going to do an oxymoron and create an obnoxious Canadian. So I created it. And I actually, at some point, someone says, you would think that obnoxious Canadian is an oxymoron, but apparently that's not true. So, and I haven't told anyone this, but there's a character in there. There was, in addition to the older woman who's a family, the one who's actually related, and then there's her husband and his kids who are not her kids, they're stepkids, and they're twins in their mid 20s who are kind of like children of the corn a little bit. But the guy is the person I kept seeing who kind of inspired the character is Daniel Levy from Schitt's Creek. So I kept seeing him, although my character is a recovering alcoholic. So I don't know if Daniel, which I don't think Daniel is. But,
if you're talking about Schitt's Creek, we're going to be here all night. All right. So
hey, I will let
that
go. So I kept, so I wrote him. He's a little bit of a drama queen, very dramatic, but also likable. So he's one of the characters inspired by that. So that's a little of the real inspiration behind my book. So,
well, I got a bit of inspiration for A Star is Dead from my husband's barber. He was telling Don that in Florida, all barbers have to take extra training to look for signs of domestic abuse. Oh. And one of his clients, a man, was beaten to death by his girlfriend. And this was an educated man, and he was, in love with her. And the barber also cut the father's hair, and the father said, I should have grabbed my son and hauled him off to a psychiatrist, because they would make up, they would come back together, the girlfriend would beat him up, and he wouldn't say anything. And eventually he died of internal bleeding. And, I was fascinated at how many men are subjected to domestic abuse, and they won't say anything because, great big guy, smaller woman. And it's a very strange but real problem.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Wow. And that's so interesting that they have that course. I mean, that's fantastic that they do. I've never heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
it's required by Florida for all bartenders and barbers. I think that's fun. And hair salons.
Oh.
So places where you come in contact with people. Yeah. And then they teach you the signs and what to look for. And what happens, my barber asked the guy to shift in his chair. And when he did, he said, ow. And the barber said, what's the matter? And he said, look at this bruise. And he had a bruise that started at his armpit and went down to his waist.
Wow.
And he said, my girlfriend did that. And the barber said, hey, man, you need to do something about this. And he said, yeah, but we're fine now. And they weren't fine.
Did she was she arrested and prosecuted?
They couldn't. He died of internal bleeding, and it was too late. afterward.
Wow.
So nothing could be done. So she got away with murder.
Jesus. Well, in our book,
Yeah.
in our books, they don't.
No, not usually. Not in our books.
Well, and in my book, she went to jail for the rest of her life. But in real life, she got away.
Wow.
We
Wow.
fix things in our books, right? We bring justice.
Yes. Yeah. I have to say there are times, when I was writing plays, because I started as a playwright, and I always, one of my plays was being produced and people are laughing, and at the end I heard like sniffling and people were crying. And I thought, God, if I can do that, if I can make people laugh and cry in the same, space of whatever I'm writing, like that's kind of like a part, that is so satisfying. So I can't do it with a sitcom, but I try to, at least with this series, is really just pure fun, and funny, but with this, I do try to, there are storylines that involve racism and sexism and just various things, and one of the characters, her fiance's son, is on the spectrum, inspired by some of the kids that my daughter was friends with. You see that's these kids that would be on these play dates, and you see what they're dealing with. So and so it's fulfilling that if someone can, but I mean, cry because they feel good, tearful joy, tears of joy, not tears of sadness.
We got enough of that.
Yes.
Shane, were there any questions from the audience?
Yes, we do. But I wanted to say that the thing that I've been reading a lot of mysteries, even more so now in the pandemic, because I do find that when the ending happens and when you have this resolution, it is so relieving to me, because there's so many questions in the world that I can't solve, and reading a mystery, I feel like something is solved. It's been so relieving to read some of these books and to have that personally. So thank you for writing.
Well, thank you. That's great. That really is fulfilling.
That's cool.
So a reminder that if you have any questions, be sure to type them up as a comment. But we do have a couple of comments that I wanted to start with. So Linda said that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the shame is felt by the victim, not the abuser. And so that goes along with your story, Elaine. And John says that, going back to your story, Ellen, that the phrase "saved by the bell" is from the bell of the people being locked up.
Oh, you're
amazing.
That.
It makes sense.
Oh, that's great.
Joanne is asking to you specifically, Elaine, what was the name of the Red Light District book that you read?
It was called The History of Storyville. And Storyville, Storyville, was the red light district in Old New Orleans. And they used to have Storyville balls where white men would meet up with women who were African Americans, some free, some not. And so it was shameful but tolerated.
Well, it was called Placage, and what it was is that often they would have actually written. This is a very dated word, but quadroons and octoroons, and there were balls, and with some of these people, they would have actually written contracts that they were. The women would have to get houses, and their children would be educated. Any product, and the thing about Storyville that's interesting is that. The name Story was the name of the man who created this district, because he was trying to shove all this prostitution into a particular section. And he hated the fact that his name became the name of the district. He did not want that at all.
Be careful what you do then, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah, it's fascinating. There was that great movie years ago with Brooke Shields and Keith Carradine. So I believe it was called Storyville.
All right. So,
By the way, New Orleans is like, I'm just I love New Orleans. I have to say that when I was I joined a sorority, and this is actually, I found out at the time, I thought it was the only city that had this rule, but it turns out, there are other cities that do, that we couldn't live in the sorority because there was a law in New Orleans that if more than 5 women lived together, it was considered a brothel. So
They have that here in Evanston, north of Chicago, that
where really?
University there, and I think up until very recently, the law basically said that they couldn't have more than 3 or 4 women in a household without it being a brothel.
mm-hmm.
I was thrown out of a hotel when I was 16 in New Orleans.
Oh, really? You were what, out of a hotel?
Yes.
Tossed out.
I was thrown out of a hotel.
Really?
Bad
We
girl,
were
Elaine.
down there. Yes. We were down there with a church group. This is so nerdy, right? And so the girls decided that they would TP the boys' rooms. So we TP'd the room, we took shaving cream, we put it all over everything, and the maid came in after we left instead of the boys. And so they called the man down who was in charge of it. His name was George Furneaux. And they told him that we had 1 hour to clean the room or we were all going to go out. And it was the Jung Hotel.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
we cleaned the room.
That.
Yeah. And
that.
we were in disgrace. We were in disgrace for the rest of the visit. But it was sort of fun.
It's funny how that stuff happens on, like that was your church group. The only time I've ever played strip poker in my life was on a Girl Scout troop to Albany, New York, where we were.
I wish I had a 4-H story for you guys right now, but I just don't.
Nothing with cows or sheep or anything like that.
No livestock at all, really.
4-H, I love that.
Okay.
I was in 4-H, yeah.
Joanne is asking to Elaine, do you have any more dead-end job mysteries in the works?
Not right now. I won't say no for good, but I have a contract for 2 more Angela Richmond books. So we'll see what comes down. But right now, I just turned in my next Angela Richmond book, which is called Death Grip. And that will be out in the United Kingdom in December and in March in the US. So,
what was the title of that again? I think I kind of blipped a little bit.
Death Grip.
Death
DETHGRIP. Yeah.
All right. And so,
strangling.
My question of next, continuing that theme, is what's next on your reading list? Anything spooky for the month of October?
My mom sent me her copy of Louise Penny's latest book, All the Devils Are Here, I think it is. So I've read all of Louise's book, and I've gotten to know her a little. So that's next up, and so I'm looking forward to that.
I am reading L.A. Chandler's book. I can't remember the title of it right now, but it's a Christmas book because I'm blurbing it. So I've skipped over Halloween entirely. But that's out next year. And then I have the new Anne Cleeves book waiting for me because I just turned in my revisions. So I haven't been allowed to read anything or do anything or go anywhere or talk to anybody in quite a while, actually. So I've got a stack of books waiting for me. And that's one of the ones on the top.
That's great.
Well, I just finished a fun cozy. It's called Grounds for Murder. It's by Tara Lush, and it's a coffee house mystery. And I just blurbed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's set in Florida, so if you're looking for something light and fun, Grounds for Murder by Tara Lush is a good one. And I also finished and really enjoyed Before She Was Helen by, Cooney, her last name? And it's set at a retirement village, and it's hilarious. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, I just looked up L.A. Chandler's book. It's called 12 Days of Christmas in New York.
Oh.
So it's historical New York Christmas. It's very charming.
Yes.
I always have to have a, like, we all have like staff picks around the holidays for like, oh, like here's a cheerful Christmas book to give like your whoever. And mine's always like a really dark mystery. And I'm like, but it takes place on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I'm
mean, I
going
love
to
that.
pitch my own mystery. I'm going to pitch because I wrote one of my Cajun books was A Cajun Christmas Killing. And it's not really completely dark. Actually, I'll tell you, that was inspired by the bonfires they light on the levees on Christmas Eve. And I actually dragged my family down there in 2015 so I could experience them for myself. And so I wrote everything I experienced into the book. So
Cool.
yeah.
So my last question is going to be about place. So I think that each of you have very distinctive places. Have you ever, or how do you consider place and how do you write to have the place be so vivid but not take over?
I love setting. I feel like, with my TV work, it's really all about dialogue and movement and action. And my theater work, my plays, my first agent always said you have a theater voice and a TV voice. And my theater voice is, I was obsessed with Cajun country. I just find it a fascinating place. And so I love creating the atmosphere. I think that adds a lot to the series. And then my other series, which takes place in Astoria, Queens, is literally my character lives where my nonna lives. She lives downstairs. Her grandmother lives upstairs. She lives upstairs. Her grandmother's downstairs. So I'm literally reliving my past as I write. It takes place in the present, but I'm revisiting all those places. And I just feel like I can't write either of those books. I can't make them rich without creating the sense of environment. And I think you just instinctually know when to like pull back so it's not taking over. What do you guys think?
I would think so. In Stars Dead and in my Angela books, they're set very much in for the 1%. And I've been fascinated by the classes. We think of America as a classless society, but it's not. The classes are there, and if you try to get out of it, they will whap you on the head. It's really hard to get out. And so I'm always fascinated by the issue of class. And so Shoto County is a place that, to me, allows me to write about something that fascinates me.
So my books are standalones, so there's a different setting for each book. The one time I started writing a book from setting was maybe a mistake. It was I was just so married to the setting that I had trouble figuring out what story would occur in there. It made it a little bit difficult to write. And then again, the book I just finished and have turned in, but it's not published until next year. It's called Death at Greenway, and it's set at Agatha Christie's summer estate, Greenway, in England during World War II. Starting from setting is challenging. Like I love setting, and I love being able to evoke a setting that, a place I've been to and want to tell you about. The danger is, of course, like not leaving any room for the reader to imagine. If everything is so vividly described, it's maybe not as engaging to the reader. So I think the trick is to tell the details that help the story, tell the details that are unique, idiosyncratic. It's not a normal house, or it's not a normal place. The things that make it unique, like the tombs in the cemetery of your book. That's not what you have in every cemetery, right? So that's something to spend time on. So it's a balance. I think you just have to keep revising until it reads well.
And I actually do a pass where I make sure I'm touching all the five senses. I sometimes, because it's like, what's the scent and what's, so I try to I always find that scent is the thing that I have to like kind of throw in at the last minute because I haven't gone near it.
Or taste, since taste because
Yes.
you're in a boneyard. So, don't lick anything.
Yeah.
Well, the whole reason there are recipes in my book is that when I wrote the first one, I was so hungry. I was describing jambalaya and gumbo. I'm like, oh my God, well, if I'm making myself hungry, I'm going to make my readers hungry. So then I got stuck putting recipes in because I'm not a cook. And stuck is not the right word. But I've learned and I really work. That's sometimes the recipes and perfecting them is the hardest part of the book for me.
Makes sense to me.
All right. As a reminder to the audience, all 3 of these beautiful and lovely books are available for sale at left-bank.com. We have A Star is Dead, Lucky One, and Murder in the Bayou Boneyard. So they are all available for sale. I did post a link to conveniently have them all on one page, which is the event page for this evening. And if you have any friends that missed tonight's event and you had as much fun as I did, you can tell them to go to that event page, which I linked there. And the event will be a video there as well as a video on Facebook that you can tell them, hey, watch this. It was fun. Learn about some really fantastic mysteries that I love. So I want to thank the audience for coming this evening. I want to thank the 3 of you who are just fantastic. Your support for St. Louis, your support for Left Bank Books is incredibly appreciated. And I cannot wait to read your next books.
Thank you so much for having us, and thanks to everyone who was here to join us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I miss toasted ravioli.
It's good to talk to people. It's good to talk to people without masks. Thank you so much.
All right, well, have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Shane.